The UN is warning of the risk of increased violence in Myanmar's western Rakhine state. It's home to the minority Rohingya community. The UN says it received reports of Rohingya being killed in an area captured by a rebel group known as the Arakan Army. It says 45,000 Rohingya fled to neighbouring Bangladesh. The rebel group denies the allegation.
The High Commissioner calls for an immediate end to the violence and for all civilians to be protected without any distinction based on identity. Prompt and unhindered humanitarian relief must be allowed to flow, and all parties must comply fully and unconditionally with international law, including measures already ordered by the International Court of Justice for the protection of Rohingya.
Meanwhile, the fires destroyed hundreds of makeshift structures at a camp housing Rohingya refugees in the town of Cox's Bazar in southeastern Bangladesh. Thousands have been left without shelter after a blaze on Friday quickly spread throughout the tightly congested shacks. Bangladeshi authorities say a few injuries have been reported, but no fatalities. Local media reports indicate the fire may have started at the warehouse of an NGO. Well, at least 1 million Rohingya have already fled Myanmar, escaping a military-led crackdown in 2017. And they've gathered in refugee camps in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. But Al Jazeera's Tanvir Chowdhury is live for us now. Tanvir, we can see the rows of tents that are behind you, and I know that's only a small part of the camp itself. Tell us about what things are like in the camp now.
Well, as you have mentioned, increasing number of fire incidents in the camp. It's quite frequent, actually, and many of them allegedly are arson attacks, by rival faction for one reason or other. Few of them are, of course, accidents due to liquid natural gas cylinder blasts, and there's been casualties previously also. Now, there's also increasing number of gang violence related to drug smuggling. There's also political groups fighting for dominance within the camp, which leads to violence and death in the camp. This has been going on for almost a year now. And the ordinary Rohingyas who are living with families are increasingly scared. They don't get out or venture out in the evening because they're scared of this gang violence and other kind of factional fights. And there's also dwindling aid from the international community, which means cut in ration. There's a concern about malnutrition within the camp. And every year, nearly 35,000 new children are born here in the camp, according to the Bangladesh government. That means the population is also increasing and the demand for aid and resource is increasing, and it's frustrating the Bangladesh government as well. Now, talking to some of the Rohingyas in the camp, their biggest frustration is that there is no hope of repatriation. They don't see anything. With the political climate the way it is in Myanmar, there's more than 50% of the population are children. They don't have formal education. That means without a future, just informal education in learning center. So a lot of challenges for the aid agencies, for the government, and of course for the Rohingyas themselves without hope. They don't know where they will end up being, staying here for almost 7 years now.
Tanvir, we were talking about the increasing violence in Rakhine state, the fact that the Rohingya, of course, are caught in the middle of that. What are you hearing from your sources about the fighting in Myanmar?
Well, we've been talking to some of the people, young men actually, who crossed from the other side, and one of them was actually recruited by the Myanmar Army. We talked to him a month back and again, and this is a situation that is increasingly becoming common within the northern Rakhine state. They're either recruited by the Rakhine Army or by the Myanmar Army, so they're crossed in between. If they don't join, they said they'll burn their home, their family will be in harm's way, and many of them are actually forced to leave their villages. Now, we have heard reports from the UN, as you have said in your report, as well as the US State Department on Thursday has raised concern about the increasing violence in the northern Rakhine and said thousands of people are already been displaced in that area. The UN Special Rapporteur for Rohingya Human Rights, Tom Andrews, said that all the signs, ominous signs are there. There'll be another bloodbath in that area unless the international community intervene very soon. There's also clashes in the bordering Myanmar and Bangladesh by rebel and the Myanmar army. Mines are all across the border. Many villagers are hurt. Frequent fire of artillery, mortar shell, machine guns are common in the border area. So very tense situation even in the border area. Many parts have been taken over by the rebel army, and many of the Myanmar officers from border guards and military has crossed into Bangladesh in recent weeks, at least more than 500. They've been taken away to Myanmar by Navy boats recently. So the whole situation is becoming climactic more and more. And it has been out of focus because of other crises around the world, yet here is one of the largest group of stateless people and in what is now the largest refugee camp stuck in a limbo.
Tanvir, thank you very much indeed. Tanvir Chowdhury talking to us from Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. Well, Ishita Kumar is the head of Rohingya Crisis Programme at Legal Action Worldwide, and she's joining us live from Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. We were just hearing from Tanvir there that because of the violence that has been happening in Rakhine state, we seem to be an increasing number of people that are coming over the border towards places like Cox's Bazar. Given the circumstances he's been describing, one can only imagine this is going to put tremendous pressure on a situation which is already extremely difficult.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Rob. The ongoing developments in the Rakhine state, they are very concerning. Of course, on account of the fighting that is having a grave civilian impact, particularly on the Rohingya population in the villages of the Buthidaung township, but also because of the very tense social dynamics that are emerging because of this conflict. We did see the UN report state that an estimated 45,000 Rohingya civilians have been displaced because of the ongoing fighting, and they are seeking protection. This, of course, is indeed frightening and disturbing as the UN describes the reports that are emerging from the ground. Also, just to give a little bit of context, this fighting has been going on since November late last year. And earlier this year in February, Myanmar enforced the forced conscription law, which has once again disproportionately impacted the Rohingya minority population because they do not have free movement rights within the Rakhine state. And it is estimated by independent reports that as many as 5,000 Rohingya are currently on account of coercion being forced to serve with the military. So indeed, the situation is concerning, continues to be concerning as well. Yeah, over to you. I can speak more about the camp.
Yeah, I do want to ask you about that because Tanvir was referring to the fact that even if people manage to make it to the camps, then life there is still extremely difficult, as you've just been outlining. But of course, part of the problem, a significant part of the problem, are the armed groups, the level of crime that's going on. There doesn't appear to be any effort to try to make this more secure. How difficult is this for organisations like yours to deal with when you are faced with what appears to be uncontrolled fighting between armed groups in the camp?
Regarding the armed groups in the camps, there has been over the years a proliferation of these criminal armed groups. And again, once again, this is not something that we are seeing just over the last few weeks or so, but it has been a phenomena that has gradually unfolded to sharply decline the security situation in the camps. We saw since late 2022 that the armed groups have been engaged in cross-firings, exchange of fire, even during daytime, and that continued over the last year, 2023. And the civilians have, of course, borne the brunt, the civilian Rohingyas who are living inside the camps. They have been running extortion rackets also. What we have seen over the last 2 weeks, especially in the month of May, which is of course linked to the ongoing conflict in Rakhine that the correspondent was just speaking about, is the sharp rise in the number of abductions as well, as we hear from the actors on the ground. And these abductions are allegedly linked to forced recruitment for Rohingya men to be taken to the other side. And the most concerning part is that there may be adolescents who are being targeted as well. The community has been trying to put up a collective resistance, including the women, which has again led to some reports of fatalities and injuries as they are trying to resist this. So the situation is indeed challenging. Of course, there are routine police operations inside the camps to try and contain and address. However, the sheer proliferation of the camps, and this is not just a few camps, but the systematic nature in which the abductions are taking place, it it a big challenge for the government and for the humanitarian actors.
Ishita Kumar, we appreciate you being with us on Al Jazeera, ma'am. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.